So if your road bike is running hydraulic disc brakes, chances are you're rocking something a little bit like this. It's a standard 2-piston brake caliper, 1 piston on either side that pushes those brake pads onto the disc. By the way, my name, as always, is Luke, and yeah, welcome back to Trace Velo. Now, to be fair, these things are pretty perfect, to be honest. I mean, I've run them for years and years, obviously. Never really thought I needed any more stopping power, but I was on AliExpress the other day, as per usual, spotted the contents of this box, and within nanoseconds, I bought these things. 4-piston brake calipers. Yeah, complete overkill, no doubt about it, especially for the kind of stuff I'm doing around here. But today I'm gonna get them installed, run them back to back with the stock calipers, and see if these actually make any real difference or if they're just a gimmick. So here they are, 4-piston calipers in a pretty obnoxious pink color. Now, 4-piston calipers, they're nothing new really. They were all over AliExpress, but prior to seeing these ones, all the ones I saw were post mount. So, you know, targeted towards mountain bikers really. These are the first flat mount varieties that I came across. It means I can just slap them directly on my road bike without any adapters. Hence the reason I was excited to pick them up. Now, ZRace, the brand, you might recognize the name. I covered a pair of their regular 2-piston calipers in a previous video, these green ones. They had a couple of little quirks, which I covered in the video, but performance-wise, they were really solid. So I've got high hopes for these pink monstrosities. Now, visually, they've clearly taken some heavy inspiration from these Hope RX4 calipers. They're not identical, but let's be honest, someone at ZRace probably had a set of RX4s on their desk when designing these things. The big difference though, price. So those Hope RX4 calipers are about 100 quid each. These ones, 75 quid for the pair. And just to be clear, I bought them myself. This isn't sponsored or anything. They're gonna replace the stock calipers on my L2 ERX group set. And my first thought, more pistons, they're gonna be much bigger, right? Well, take a look at this. Not really, to be honest with you. Maybe a little bit taller, but yeah, nothing drastic. And the weight, well, the stock calipers from L2, 102 grams, which is really good, actually. And these pink ones, 109, so not much in it there. And for another kind of frame of reference, the latest Shimano 105 Di2 group set, one of their single calipers weighs 124 grams. So yeah, these pink ones are way lighter. Now this is cool. So on the left is a brake pad that would fit a standard Shimano 2-piston caliper. On the right is the one for the 4-piston. It's about 1.5 times bigger, actually. And if you need replacements, they're the same size as the ones that go in the Hope RX4 calipers. So just search for VRX 801 pads and you should be good to go. But very quickly, let's have a look at the actual pistons inside that 4-piston caliper because they're quite interesting. Most of the calipers that I've used either have ceramic pistons, which are a bit more expensive but really good under high heat braking applications, or aluminium pistons, which are a bit cheaper but nice and lightweight and pretty durable as well. These pistons in these pink ones are neither of those two actually. You can see when I scrape them with a knife, bits of kind of plastic come off, which initially concerned me actually, but it turns out they're phenolic resin pistons, which is a type of composite plastic, really lightweight and good kind of thermal insulation as well, so prevents heat from being passed into the mineral oil. Now they are cheaper to produce than most other types of pistons, hence the reason they may have been used here, and arguably not quite as durable as ceramic or aluminium pistons, but Shimano used them, so does SRAM, and Hope use phenolic pistons as well. So yeah, I was initially a little bit concerned, but they're super widespread, so I'm sure they'll be fine. But very quickly, more pistons. Sounds great, right? What does the theory actually say here? Well, braking force is pressure times the surface area of the pistons. Since the brake lever and the master cylinder in there are going to remain the same when swapping in these new calipers, I'll assume pressure is constant. A typical 2-piston caliper like this one here, they tend to use two 22mm diameter pistons, which gives a total piston surface area of 760 millimeters squared. This pink one uses 4 16mm pistons, which totals 804 millimeters squared. So at least on paper, that should be around a 6% bump in braking force, but that's only part of the story really. You're clamping with a bigger brake pad over a wider area, so this should increase the friction, better heat management as well, right? Because there's more pad material to both absorb and radiate away the heat under braking. And finally, again, on paper, modulation of the brakes should feel a bit better too. You've got a bigger pad with more even pressure across the rotor. So the engagement of the brakes should feel a bit smoother, a bit more progressive, less kind of grabby, less on-off, if you know what I mean. But this is all just waffle, right? Let's go ahead and test these things. Okay, right, quite an interesting one today. So basically, in an ideal world, I'd love to be able to ride these kind of brakes back to back. So ride the stock ones and then instantly jump on another bike and ride these kind of ridiculous 4-piston ones to see the difference. I don't have 2 identical bikes, so I'm going to try the next best thing. So I've got the bike in the back of the car with the stock brakes, and there's a hill just up the road here that's kind of nice and long, really quiet, and there's a good runoff as well in case I face any problems. So I'm going to run the stock brakes, and then I'm going to come back here, and I've got all this gear in the back of the car, right? So you might be able to see my bike stand there. Got a bag of tools in the back. Essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to brake swap on the side of the road. So I've got, yeah, all my gear and all the stuff to bleed the brakes and everything. So that's the plan. Run the stock brakes, come back here, swap over to the new ones, bleed the brakes and everything, and then go again. It's about 12 o'clock now, and I've got to pick up my daughter from nursery at 5:30 as well. So yeah, time is ticking. Lots to do. So yeah, wish me luck and let's crack on. Okay, so a couple of you will probably know I was in Shanghai recently at the bike show. Absolutely wicked trip. But while I was kind of rushing around trying to cover everything, there was one frame that I missed, and I really wanted to include it, so I'm going to stick it in here. And here it is, the 2025 Yoeleo Altera G21. Firstly, I love this champagne color. Looks really slick. Full internal cable routing, so yeah, it keeps things nice and clean. And kind of a headline feature for me, it can handle 700 by 53C tires. So yeah, huge tire clearance. Comes with some nice looking in-frame storage on the top tube here, and also on the down tube, a standard round seat post, so you can slap in a dropper seat post if you want. And the actual seat post clamp is kind of interesting as well. This is it here, and it kind of slots in from the bottom underneath the top tube, so it's sort of hidden away, which is cool. I had to play around with it. Yeah, really good design actually. It's also got a UDH compatible hanger and has a removable bash guard underneath. So yeah, definitely set up to, you know, tackle some pretty gnarly terrain. Now the cost is $1,400, so a bit more expensive than my last gravel frame, but yeah, it looks really interesting. I'm in the market for a new gravel frame actually, so let me know if you want to see this one on the channel. Might pair pretty well with some of these 4-piston calipers actually. Yeah, bit more modulation on loose gravel could be a bonus. Anyway, yeah, let me know what you think and let's get back to it. So on the way to test the regular calipers here, and the keen-eyed among you might have spotted some new disc rotors. So I built up this bike a few videos ago and originally went with last gen Shimano Ice Tech rotors. I ran them for a few hundred miles, so they were properly bedded in, but honestly the bite was never really there, kind of underwhelming to be honest with you. So I grabbed these off AliExpress. They look a lot like SRAM's Centerline X rotors, but instead of 90 quid each, these were 20 quid for the pair. So I did order 2 purple ones, but they sent me a black one by mistake, even though annoyingly the label does say purple. I could have got a refund, but whatever, I ran it anyway. Now eventually I did cave and I bought another purple one because I'm a massive loser and I need things to match. But for the test, I just used the original black one. Braking was instantly better with these new rotors, way more bite overall. So yeah, very happy. Anyway, enough waffle, back to it. Okay, right, firstly, forgive the noise. It's basically, it's lambing season at the moment, so we've got a flock of sheep over there and then some over here as well. So yeah, forgive the interruption. But basically, the stock brakes, they're just so good. There's nothing wrong with these whatsoever. I mean, coming down here, I didn't even want to kind of come close to giving 100% on the brakes because I'd be worried I'd lock up. Well, definitely lock up the rear, but even the front, they're honestly that good. Really nicely bedded in. They feel sharp and responsive. So there's nothing wrong with them. They do not need to be upgraded. But yeah, I'm going to give this hill 1 or 2 more runs to get a bit more of a baseline, and then I'm going to go back, add those 4-piston monsters, and yeah, see if they're any better. So let's go. Oh, they're too good. They're really good. Oh. Yeah, they're very good. These stock brakes, it's more than you'll ever need for kind of general riding. So let's see if we can ruin a perfectly good bike with some absolutely bonkers brakes.
5 minutes later.
Right, so back at the mothership, aka the Peugeot estate, yeah, let's swap these brakes over. Now, it was quite fun working out the back of my car, actually. I felt a bit like one of those mobile bike mechanics, but in retrospect, this would have been so much easier in the garage. Now, I'm tackling the front first. Removing the caliper was absolutely fine, but I am going to reuse the olives. These do get crushed, and that's kind of the whole point, to make them seal. So ideally, they should be replaced every time, especially when installing different calipers. But for now, I'm going to risk it for a biscuit. Right, so that's on. That was easy enough. Yeah, does feel a bit weird to do it. Just sat on the side of the road. But anyway, that's in. I've got the 160 adapter in. So I'm basically going to get the wheel on and just check everything clears before I take the effort to start bleeding it. So let's give that a go. All right, easy peasy. That fits. That fits, no problem. And yeah, the colour looks great. Look at that. Okay, right. Let's get these brakes bled. So bleeding the system, this is kind of make or break time, really. And the process can, well, it can tell you quite a lot about the design of these calipers. An easy bleed, and it's probably well designed. However, you might be able to see I was struggling a bit. Okay, I thought I'd hit a little bit of trouble, actually, bleeding these brakes. But it turns out when you're bleeding these L2 setups, I forgot, if you've screwed in this preload adjustment screw right here at all, which you use to kind of fine tune how the brakes feel, you need to unscrew it all the way, because it kind of blocks the piston inlet or something like that. So part of the mechanism here gets blocked slightly and it doesn't bleed properly. So yeah, luckily thought I was going to face some problems, but we're back in business. I can get this bled easy peasy. Okay, right, one completed. Now it does feel like the lever travel is a bit more, even with the preload adjustment screw all the way. That's where it stops there, whereas this one stops a bit further forward. Yeah, maybe there's just, you need to move a higher volume of oil to fill both pistons, well, to fill all 4 pistons. But yeah, it seems pretty solid. So let's get the rear brake sorted, and then we'll give it a rip. So the rear brake caliper, exactly the same process. You might be able to see here, to kind of bleed these, I push oil through the system via the syringe. Then once it's collected in the cup above the shifter, I use the brake lever to pump the oil back through the system. Not sure this is the official way to do it, but I find it reduces air bubbles, and yeah, works for me. Okay, right, that's all completed. The brakes front and back on there and bled fine. Yeah, that took a little while, but it was quite nice doing it out in the sun. The rear brake, I have it kind of the other way around, actually. So this is rear, this is front. But the rear brake does feel a bit better than the front. Maybe that'll even itself out when I'm kind of when I start using it. But yeah, for now, it's certainly good enough to give these brakes a go. So I'm going to pack all this stuff back into the car and hit that massive hill again. Okay, so first thing I got to do is bed these brakes in, actually. So I'm going to take it really easy on the first run, just to get them all set up before I give it welly and really put these things to the test. All right, so yeah, even on that little just bedding in run down there, I can tell these brakes are going to be absolutely monstrous once they're all sorted. So there's another little hill back there, so I'll do another little bedding run and then we'll hit these for real. So time for a real test. I'm just building some speed here, trying to hit about 30, maybe 35 miles an hour, and yes, slamming on the brakes as hard as I dare. Wow. That's so stupid. Yeah, silly. So silly. So yeah, safe to say that the brakes are pretty good. Just the amount of raw power available, it's bonkers, really. I gave it a few more runs, and honestly, yeah, but it blew me away every time I pulled the brake lever. There's just so much power that's kind of on tap. I really tried to push them as well, getting them hot enough to hit brake fade, but I couldn't do it. Maybe on a massive alpine descent, sure, but this hill, yeah, not even close. Modulation was a nice surprise too. I assumed that I'd be kind of locking up the rear every time I pulled the brake, but it's actually really easy to find and hold that sweet spot. It did happen a couple of times, but yeah, overall, they feel fantastic. There's way more power here than you'll ever realistically need on a bike like this. I don't think I went beyond about 60% on the front brake. I could maybe push it a bit further if I had a death wish, but I'm pretty sure the front would just lock up and I'd end up chewing the tarmac. So who are these brakes for? Well, I think they're really freaking cool, but then again, I am a massive loser. So yeah, do bear that in mind. But yeah, for 99% of road bikers, these are complete overkill, and yeah, you don't need them, but they do offer some real benefits. For starters, like I mentioned earlier, the ceiling for brake fade is so much higher than it is for regular calipers. I mean, braking is just turning that momentum, that kinetic energy, into heat via friction at the end of the day. So the more pads you've got, the more braking you can do before things start really cooking. And brake fade, it's incredibly scary. I've experienced it a couple of times. You're going down a descent and then the braking performance just drops off a cliff, and it can happen really suddenly as well. So yeah, that's a massive benefit. With that in mind, obviously perfect for heavier bike setups. I was out bike packing in Sicily quite recently, and I'll put a video out about that soon, I suspect. But yeah, that bike was hefty when it was fully loaded up, and it would have been quite nice to have a little bit of extra headroom, a bit more safety margin on some of the long descents I was doing. And thinking about it, they might also be perfect for a slightly more extreme gravel biking setup, or maybe a cyclocross bike. With the improved modulation, you'd be much less likely to lock up when the road surface is loose and gravelly underfoot. They're just a bit better than standard calipers. Improved modulation, like I said, and so much top-end braking power available if you need it. But as far as I see it, two small trade-offs to be aware of with these things. Firstly, because the piston surface area is slightly larger, the actual brake lever does need to travel ever so slightly further before those pads will contact the disc. This can lead to a slightly softer feeling initial brake pull, especially if your system isn't perfectly bled. You can tweak this with the free stroke adjustment, and it's not a deal breaker for me. But yeah, if you like that really snappy brake feel, these might not be for you. And with more pistons comes more piston seals, right? So technically twice the chance for failure on that front compared to a regular caliper. Again, I'm not super fussed, but if you do want rock solid reliability, then yeah, maybe give these things a miss. But yeah, that's it. Subscribe if you like this kind of thing. Hit the like button, and that's all I've got. See you next time. I'm just stood at the back of the garage at this point, by the way, so I've still got to come back round and switch off the camera. See you next time.